Good afternoon, everybody. It's Lorraine Alternative Homesteading on February 18, 2026. Welcome back to my channel and welcome newcomers. I hope everybody's doing well today. It's raining here in Kentucky, and it's not raining heavy. It's just like a very heavy mist, a little drizzle and stuff, but it's very bleak. There's no sun out today. But I wanted to give you an update on some things that you left in the comment section. Now, on the community page, I created a post, and the post was in response to what I read on my live chat this past Saturday night. It was a Quora post about being knocked out or put to sleep. And it's with regard to even a more nefarious reason for that happening, other than breaking into your house and stealing stuff or injecting you, whatever. The more nefarious reason was for a technology that is quite unique, that is not in the mainstream, but it's about harvesting your energy. And that's probably why, like, after you're knocked out without any notification, like, you could be watching TV, you could be talking on the phone, you could be scrolling through the internet, and then suddenly go from being completely awake to completely asleep, cannot be woken up. And then when you do come to, quote unquote, you feel exhausted, you feel discombobulated, you feel like out of sync, like what just happened? It's almost like you've been, drugged, and then you wake up in a stupor. And this happens to a lot of targeted people, and you have to wonder how many times this happens on the road, and how many of those alleged auto accidents that you hear about, including my ex-boss, who died in a car crash back in New Jersey, was a result of this technology forced upon an individual. Just have to wonder. So, I asked ChatGPT, I said, could you tell me about this technology? And of course, Chat was like beating around the bush and said that there's really no technology that describes what I'm talking about. And actually, Chat asked me at the end of providing me an answer where I located that information. So I cut and pasted the whole thing in its entirety into ChatGPT. And basically I was told that it was misinformation, to summarize. So based upon that post and what ChatGPT said in response to it, one of you guys said that ChatGPT AI was recently upgraded. I'm going to use the word upgraded, okay? On February 13th. So right before Valentine's Day. So this upgrade was to censor, I'll use the word censor, okay, to censor some of the truth out of the responses that ChatGPT or other AI vehicles might tell the public. Because, depending on your wording of how you approach a question and the subsequent questions or comments or inquiries, ChatGPT kind of puts it all together and can tell you some really interesting information, sort of like when ChatGPT told me that I was, quote unquote, a person of interest, and put like a little smiley face next to it. I kid you not. ChatGPT did that to me last year. And this was just putting in all of these experiences on my property, right? I never labeled it to ChatGPT. I said, I'm experiencing this. I'm experiencing home break-ins. I'm experiencing these dead animals. I'm experiencing these neighbors harassing me. It was Chat that told me that I was, quote unquote, a targeted individual and a person of interest. Allegedly a person. I'm so interesting, right? I'm so interesting. And by the way, interesting is this little piece of art that I received in the mail. Thank you so much, subscriber, named here. Painstakingly tore each piece of this neon paper and then pasted it into like a card. Let me show you it in its entirety. It's really cool. Oops. There you go. Very cool. Thank you so much. I appreciate the amount of effort you placed into that and mailing it off to me. Thank you so much. And for the card, telling me that I'm all sparkly and stuff. I don't know. I've never been described as sparkly, but that's really cool. Yes, sparkly. I like sparkles. I'm sure my neighbors like sparkles too. And speaking of the predator perverts on patrol, it occurred to me, you know, the video that I posted the other day about all the howling down the county road, which is not where the coyotes hang out, by the way. The real coyotes hang out in the opposite direction, and I hear them. I hear them like chirping, and they're really cute. Like, I know what the real ones sound like when it's not being projected into the universe. It occurred to me that the perverts on patrol, my neighbors, are in heat. Okay? You know, they're in heat. And so they're overactive right now, this time of the year, because we had a little bit of heat, actually. It was like in the 60s. It was remarkable. We had like 60-degree I even turned off the heat, even in the Cats building. It was so warm. But yes, it occurred to me that the predators on patrol, you know, the pops, I call them pops, perverts on patrol, pedos on patrol, perverts on patrol, they're in heat. And that's why it was so loud at my neighbor's house the other night with all these howlings and alleged coyotes and wolves overlapping this loop of animals that I actually heard a couple of nights. I think it was last week too, but I didn't have it recorded well. I was just cracking up after I heard it, you know. So that is my analysis of the video, is they're in heat. Okay, so I'm going to read. Now, you may have seen this PDF book before, and I have absolutely seen it. I don't know if I've read it before because there are so many targeted individual handbooks. I wish people would be a lot more creative with titles and headings on these targeted individual handbooks, guides, whatever, because I probably have a half a dozen of them. They all say targeted individual handbook, like the one from Dr. Kildee. That was also called a targeted individual handbook, etc. I've probably got about 6 of them. So this one is by Loki, Loki Hulgaard, Hulgaard. If you want to download this, because I won't provide the link, you can type in z-lib, L-I-B, like library, lib.org. It's called Targeted Individual Handbook by Loki Hulgaard. I'm just going to jump around a little bit. I'm going to read the introduction here. There's some stuff that I won't repeat because, you know, you might get flagged by YouTube. The phenomenon of state-sponsored terrorism is nothing new and has been orchestrated by the architects of destruction, the hidden hand of Judeo-Freemasonry. There you go. The Three Masons, since time immemorial. Imposing trauma-based mind control on the common folk is a mechanism of power relied upon to maintain power, mind control, world control. The shadow government of the cabal is comprised of Jews. I can't say this. I have to tell you, though, part of my family's Jewish, so I'm not going to say it. Nothing wrong with my family. And they're Goyim. And that I grew up hearing that word, Goyim, like in Yiddish, because my mother spoke Yiddish. She understood Yiddish, by the way, which was quite useful at certain times in our lives when people were speaking the language and thinking that because my mother had an Italian last name that she didn't know what they were talking about, that they were talking about us, right? So yeah, so anyway, it actually means like stupid animals in Yiddish, referring to non-Jewish people. Like, so I grew up, like, it was very discombobulated because half of my family was Jewish and half of them was Italian. So yeah, so I grew up in a multicultural, multi-religious family, which means that I don't care what religion, color, race, creed you are. It makes no difference to me. Don't care. Treat you all the same. The cabal has been in existence for thousands of years and is poised for the realization of their plans for global dominion and enslavement of all of their despotic will as of the time of this writing. And 1 second, because, I should have looked to see when this was written. And, of course, there's no date. This is another problem, guys. If you're going to write a book, please date the book. I have come across so many of these books, and there's no date, no author. There's no way to validate what it is, okay? So if you're going to write a book, please date it. So I just skipped over stuff here. 1 second. So the loyalty entails an agenda of endeavoring to eliminate, to genocide, the white race as the greatest threat to the world rule of the cabal, as those pure blood, the white race, listen to the call of the blood memory and are not willing to self out to the cabal for self-serving ends as to great an extent as other groups, as the white race intuitively understands the difference between good, harmony, and evil, cacophony. And what is harmonious is the preservation of the organism of which one is part, which is the racial soul. And this is for educational purposes only. I'm merely reading a book. These are not my words. The white race that is most elevated in its consciousness can be inferred from its vertical tendency towards the higher planes of existence, towards the spiritual realms, and its existential drive towards maintaining our harmonious world order. That's not these creatures, though. It's like the targeted people. We want to maintain a harmonious world order, not these creatures. So the cabal of Judeo-Freemasonry, they seek a world order based upon greed, usury, trickery, and deceit. It seeks to destroy the identity of all and to reduce all to mongrel mass and the crucible of its power politics and divide and conquer tactics it employs to create chaos and impose its order. And that is the tool of the narcissist, is to create chaos. These are the histrionics. They are addicted to chaos. These are the malignant narcissists. They use chaos as a control to control you. Mind control. Satanic ritual abuse. Those who oppose the cabal are targeted. And those of pure blood, those of a healthy mind, incorruptible by its influence, are foremost in the crosshairs. Oh, I'm screwed. I'm totally screwed in this lifetime. This group, especially those who are the most intelligent and intuitive amongst them, are prime targets for the cabal's use of the following means of global enslavement. These people really need to get a life. That we can all live together in peace and harmony, right? It's the wish of this author and compiler that this handbook be spread as widely and effectively as possible, reaching the reachable and those who will take action so that the crimes of the cabal will be exposed and ultimately the balance of justice they have upset rectified. This following work is largely a synthesis of existent material on the phenomenon of targeted individuals, gang stalking, and directed energy weapons, identifying what they are, how they're used, by whom, and why. Either this information will get out and the cabal will be exposed and overthrown through effective necessary action, or there'll be no future in this world. This handbook is designed to be a contribution to the overthrow. Spread it. It is an arrow in the black hearts of the architects of destruction. Organized stalking is a well-organized occult, there you go, occult form of covert harassment used against an individual. It's done by large groups of people who systematically and repeatedly harass individuals. You know, like the Bow Wow family, the local government, the perverts that are in heat on patrol. They're in heat. So this has also been called cause stalking, gang stalking, community-based harassment, organized vigilante stalking, vengeance stalking, terrorist stalking, revenge stalking, covert action, state-sponsored harassment, microwave harassment, microwave mind control, etc. All of these labels explain the same basic phenomenon. And this paragraph was taken from the book The Hidden Evil on page 2829 by Mark Rich, State-Sponsored Terror Campaigns. And I have read a lot of his book on this channel. You'll just have to search for it. Mobbing, also referred to by some as bullying. I call it bullying on steroids by adults. Psychological terrorism and organizational violence as described as a collective form of psychological violence in which many individuals unite to persecute an individual, one person. Mobbing is a way of destroying a person without using any physical means. Well, that's not true. Degrading themes are often used to try to prevent people from coming forward. Yeah. Keep trying, guys. Keep it trying. You make yourself look like morons that you are. The morons, mops. Remember the mops, the morons on patrol? Operations are designed to intimidate and destabilize targeted individuals, TIs for short, by subjecting them to repeated disappointment, to socially alienate them by interfering with and disrupting their relationships with others, as in a social undermining. The aim is to induce personal crisis in victims, leaving them so unnerved and psychologically distressed to have the time and energy to have no time for anti-government activism. It's called Zersetzung. Well, we all know that that's not working either. What we're seeing now is a globally coordinated and organized effort of control and conformity. Many countries around the world are currently using a model of policing called community-oriented policing, which is really gangstalking. That's the cops program. Criminals on, I call them the criminals on patrol. COPS, criminals on patrol. Organized stalking is a form of terrorism used against an individual in a malicious attempt to reduce the quality of a person's life so they will, 1, have a nervous breakdown, 2, become imprisoned, 3, institutionalized, 4, experience constant mental, emotional, physical pain, 5, become homeless or then commit suicide. Allegedly what Michaela Raines did of Save a Fox, founder of Save a Fox. And from what I understand, that owner of the Reddit group is in the process of being sued. They found out who that little creature was. And I guess it should be interesting to see what the outcome is in the future. I'm looking forward to it. So what we're seeing now is a globally coordinated and organized effort of control and conformity. Many countries around the world are currently using a model of policing called... Oh, I read that already. Okay, so let's see. Okay, here it is. It's a ganging up by members of the community who follow an organized method and participate in a systemic terrorizing of an individual, like howling fake animals in heat on the county road, coming from the same direction. And there are no coyotes down there, by the way. Not real ones, anyway. So what are the goals of gang stalking? The usual goal is to isolate the target from all forms of support, so the target be set up in the future for arrest, institutionalization, or forced suicide. This is the Stasi tactic, Zersetzung. It is called Sikul. I've never heard this word before. Sikul memukid. That's in Hebrew, called targeted killing. This is new to me. I've never heard that before. Zersetzung is decomposition in German of individuals, was usually carried out by systematically undermining the target's quality of life, both socially and in the workplace. with the intention of simply destroying the target's confidence. The tactics used took various forms, such as spreading slanders, rumors, causing trouble at work, etc. Like going to the only local veterinarian, slandering me, and her not giving me a veterinarian appointment, Dr. Rebecca Caleb Wilson, because I'm not friends with her friends and she doesn't get me. I don't know how some 30-something-year-old loser would be able to get a senior citizen. Please leave a comment down below. How 30-year-olds can understand senior citizens. I would appreciate, especially a senior citizen that grew up in New York City and New Jersey compared to one of these hillbilly veterinarians who will not spay, neuter, or take care of any of the animals that are being dumped here, being procreating. Sounds like a great veterinarian, right? So what are the goals of gangstalking? There's a Zersetzung decomposition in German. It's carried out systematically undermining the target's quality of life socially and in the workplace with the intention of simply destroying a target's confidence. It's a form, organized harassment is a form of fourth generation warfare. It's a form of political information warfare waged against civilians by a state or other entity. It utilizes civilians and the military. You know, those guys that like to hide behind trees, wear cloak tutus, pirouette down the county road. Yes, you know, like the infraguard kinds of creatures. Indeed, all of society to target civilian adversaries, also known as domestic state enemies. Yes, you and I, we are senior citizens. We're domestic state enemies. We're insurgents. Sovereignty. We pose a perceived threat to the state's interests. Wow. And this is taken from the instruction manual for community gangstalkers. And again, there are multiple kind of targeted individual manuals and handbooks out there. So please, if you're going to create one, date it and label it appropriately so we can distinguish it from the others. This never-ending systemic harassment, influence, and manipulation of the targeted individual is specifically designed to control the target with the aim of keeping them in line, or the destruction, Zersetzung, of their soul. Because these people, they don't have a soul. They are soulless. The long-term objectives of these harassment and experimentation experimentation campaigns appear to be quite fundamental. 1. Induce a sense of perverted loyalty. There's that word, pervert, that perverts on patrol. Perverted loyalty towards the very agencies engaged in the individual harassment. Like they're loyal to the fusion centers, the FBI, the sheriff, all these perverts on patrol, these harassers, bullies on patrol, bops. Redirect the targeted individual's feelings of hopelessness, anger, and frustration towards racial and ethnic groups. Try again, boys and girls, men and women. That's not going to work on me. Force the individual to commit an act of violence. That's not going to happen either. Suicide or murder. That's not going to happen either. Under conditions which can be plausibly denied by the government. Well, they just make stuff up anyway. Microwave harassment and mind control experimentation. According to Julianne McKinney, rest in peace, Director, Electronic Surveillance Project Association of the National Security Alumni. The objective of the campaign is to separate a person from friends, family, keep them unemployed, induce homelessness, and reduce the quality of life so much that they suffer a nervous breakdown, cause them to commit suicide, or end up medicated, incarcerated, or institutionalized. Which, by the way, I'm going to say, just for the record, that I've got an entire community here that needs to be incarcerated, medicated, and or institutionalized. Absolutely, they are nuts. Totally crazy. Our agents will be taken from the higher as well as lower ranks of society, from among the administrative class who spend their time in amusements, editors, printers, publishers, booksellers, clerks, and salesmen, workmen, coachmen, lackeys, etc. This body, having no rights and not being employed to take any action on their own account, and consequently a police without any power, will only witness and report. Verification of their reports and arrests will depend upon a responsible group of controllers of police affairs, while the actual act of arrest will be performed by the gendarmerie and the municipal police. Any person not denouncing anything seen or heard concerning the questions of polity will also be charged with and made responsible for concealment if it be proved that he's guilty of this crime. Just as nowadays our brethren are obliged at their own risk to denounce the kahal apostates of their own family, or members who have been noticed doing anything in opposition to the kahal, K-A-H-A-L, so in our kingdom over all the world will be obligatory for all of our subjects to observe the duty of service to the state in this direction. And this was taken from the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, Protocol 17, Section 7 through 9. So there are stages of Zersetzung decomposition, and that's when, like vandalism, when they're vandalizing your property, they'll do it like a little at a time. But you all notice it. You notice that there's like one or two scratches when nobody else is living in your house but you, no animals or whatever. And then, the next day there's a third scratch, and after a week there are multiple scratches. This is done a little at a time for plausible deniability. It's sort of like these criminals on patrol here. They smeared feces on the outside of my door. It's not the first time. But then they also smeared it all inside the cat's building. When I say smeared, I took pictures of it. It is unbelievable. I have been a cat owner rescuer literally since I'm 6-7 years old. So literally 60 years I've been taking care of cats. I have never seen anything remotely like this in my entire life. It's gotten to the point where I have had to throw out, between last week and this week, about 4 of their beds, soaked with urine and feces. Cats do not do this to their beds. The way I look at it is, it's less that I have to move when I move. So they can destroy all that they want. It's all going to be thrown away, and it'll be less for me to take with me to my new place of residence out of the state of Kentucky, which, by the way, other people have said that Kentucky is really bad. People have even commented on some of my posts on other YouTube creators who are not targeted, but are speaking out against other topics. And when I post something about Kentucky, I get people chiming in, "Oh, I'm on Western Kentucky, and it's happening to me here." So this is not a phenomenon that's happening here in Jackson County, Kentucky. It's happening all over the state of Kentucky. And it's bad here. I had one person actually told me, move out of Kentucky. And some parts of Tennessee, they said. So the stages of Zersetzung is a targeting, investigation, and surveillance. Gangstalking, electronic harassment, directed energy weapons, also known as DEWs. The targeting, investigation, and surveillance begins with surveillance so that the person's personality traits can be cataloged. The targets are constantly monitored, and if a target responds emotionally to a particular trigger, that will be built into the protocol, according to Julianne McKinney. Rest in peace, young lady. They will set up a base of operation in your neighborhood and conduct surveillance. They will sublet, lease, rent property above, below, to the sides of your living space to do this. Sort of like that woman, somebody lives diagonally across me. I have not met them in 6.5 years. That's the one that actually had the light shining for 6 years into my rear window here. And then, I guess it was the end of the year, beginning of this year, went off. Gone. Poof, it's gone. Gone. I guess they got tired of paying for it. They have new handlers now, new protocols, because that one was not working for me. Money is no object, as they have an unlimited budget. Half-truths, setups, outright lies will be used. If you're an organized vigilante stalking target, the investigation is not a means to an end, it's an end unto itself. Gang stalking begins. The targeted individual may at first be placed under covert forms of surveillance. The person will probably be monitored 24/7. Foot patrols and vehicle patrols will be used to follow the individual, as well as electronic means as part of the monitoring psychological profiling process. Once the psychological profile is complete, the gang stalking can commence. Well, I know that this was happening to me when I lived at 52 Sutton Drive, Manalapan, New Jersey, a home I lived in for 30 years as an original owner. And there was a cop in the Manalapan Police Department. He was always showing up when I was at the bagel store. And, you know, most of the time I would go to the bagel store after I fed my feral cat colony at the Pinebrook Care Center, which I did for more than 16 years. And it was a registered colony in Manalapan, which is probably the only licensed and registered colony in the whole state of New Jersey. But nevertheless, it was this one cop. And sometimes he'd be off duty, sometimes he'd be in uniform, and he always managed to be getting in and out of his vehicle as I was eating a bagel in the bagel store on Gordon's Corner Road. And then it just turns out that a couple of times he showed up at my house when my house was broken into. And he's the same police officer who, when my house was broken into, the door jamb was broken, the paint's all scraped off, striation marks and the deadbolts. He looks at it, he says, "Your house wasn't broken into. When was the last time you painted your door?" The gaslighting 101. And he says, and by the way, I was a locksmith before I became a police officer. Oh, okay. They give themselves away every day. They give themselves away every day. So the first stage of Zersetzung was an evaluation of all state-held data and information: medical records, school reports, police records, intelligence reports, searches of a target's residence. At this point, they were looking for any weak points: social, emotional, physical. So they targeted my cats. That could be used as a way to put pressure on the target. That could be used to socially isolate them. Yes, that's why the Manalapan Police Department said that I was a cat lady. I said, nobody's ever called me that before. Cat lady? Nobody's ever called me that before. I'm just a person that cares for cats better than most people. So this is what they did. The group will be watching your home from their basis of operation using triangulation. And that's what happens when they set up people around your home. So I lived at 52 Sutton Drive. What they did is, after my neighbors next door, Andy and Chris, who were my neighbors for like 25 years, after they moved out, they sold their house to the perpetrators. I call them the property mob or surveillance stalkers. That was Vicky and Steve Sarantino. They moved in there. They only lived there for exactly a year, and then they moved across the street, purchasing the exact same house. And they were in there with her alleged brother-in-law. No, her alleged brother, and then this guy that would drive here from Connecticut. He was bad news. He was the one I believe was doing a lot of the damage to my house when I was not home. These were sick, depraved lunatics. This is the guy that I told you about who he would hide in the shrubs on the side of his house, and then jump onto my porch, open up my door, which was always locked, open up my security door, and he stole my cosmetics from upstairs in my bedroom and threw them into the hallway. Yeah, he did that. Yet he was the same one where, like, during the eclipse, I was trying to photograph it on my camera. He was mimicking me from his backyard. Like, he has any interest in the eclipse. I don't know if it was lunar or solar, whatever it was, but it was like one of the longest eclipses back then. So I was trying to get photos of it, and he was doing the exact same thing. He was the one also, I knew he was watching me, so I walked out. I snuck out in my backyard, in my nightgown, by the way, and I walked up to the end of my patio, and he is a level above me because he's on a deck, like on a porch, and he's looking at his phone, and I yelled at him. I said, "Hello, Steve, how are you?" And he literally fell off his chair. He literally fell. This is what happens. These are nuts and sick people. And this is a guy, I'm going to say he was in his late 30s. probably in his late 30s. He had the most rotten kids, rotten kids. They were constantly trespassing my property, and they always walked their dog on my property too. So let's see. So they're going to watch you. Then the gang stalking. Once the psychological profile is complete, the gang stalking can commence. Gang stalking generally originates from when a covert investigation is open on an individual, and teams of plain-clothes police officers, right? I just told you about that. Citizen informants, just told you about that. The snitches and snoopers, they're deployed to obsessively harass the targeted individual, usually to an extreme degree. Yes, like the perverts on patrol that are in heat pretending they're coyotes and wolves, and you heard the video, I'm sure. If you haven't, please go to my last posted video and you can hear my neighbors for sure. So then the next stage is often a supplement to covert surveillance with overt observation in order to communicate to the target that they were of interest to the Stasi and create a sense of insecurity and paranoia. The gang stalking, organized stalking, and mobbing protocol targets both the person and their property, as well as those the cabal believes that they care for as a means of harming the targeted individual, like all of my cats. Right? My mother, my cats, a couple of my friends. Yeah. The following section covers examples of particular tactics employed and the desired effect, the perpetrators, though it is by no means exhaustive. Property thefts and break-ins. Thefts may be reduced to small, inexpensive items, but some targets have reported jewelry, passports, and other items stolen, like my framed master's degree, my New Jersey license plates, driver's license plates, my passport, my checkbook register, my new watch. They actually stole my mother's wedding ring, but when I made big waves about that, they finally returned it. Because this is no small item, right? Sabotage and vandalism at home, in the workplace. Electronic equipment may be constantly failing. This may be accomplished with an E-bomb or similar device. Projects you've worked on previously may become broken. Many times this vandalism is usually just below what you'd report to the police. Well, I'm going to tell you that I got smart, and I have maintenance agreements on all my appliances here. Yes, it costs more money, but it costs a lot more money if I don't have it. So I'm having 2 appliances repaired due to the criminal activity here. Would you believe that the parts that were ordered for both items arrived damaged? Not once, not twice, right? 2 times. The 3rd time was a charm. I got a call today. I was supposed to have a service call today, and the item arrived damaged. This is the length that they will go through to destroy a person's life. Where the target owns substantial land, noxious activities will be arranged and built for next to the property. In one case, a dump, an auto racetrack, and a prison were built adjacent to a target who owned a large farm in an area of natural beauty. While you've all seen what Judge Shane Gabbard and the magistrate did to the county creek here, yeah, they dumped a bunch of concrete where there was a natural rock that would sift the water through it, but instead it acts as a shovel to push all the rainwater onto my property. And they have burned trees from the inside out. They have cut tree roots by literally damaging ditch lines that are on my property. I've all shown that on my property. And thank you, subscriber, once again, for the snapshot of the plane driving back and forth only over my property. And that was December 6, 2025. And that was when they burned all the grass on my property. Meanwhile, I live in the valley and it's always wet here. Like my grass is green 24/7, 365. Not anymore. It looks like straw. While this is rare, it does illustrate commitment to delivering punishment of those quote unquote deserving of it. Oh, yeah? What kind of punishment? Why am I deserving of punishment? Why? Because I bought the property that you couldn't afford? Or because you're envious and jealous losers? Or because you can gang up on one person and feel like you're special? Or just because you're perverts on patrol, you're sick, depraved lunatics? Because you like to target women because you're sadistic losers? While this is not necessarily property damage, it's destruction of the right to quiet enjoyment of the premises and to the market value of the property, harming the targeted individual indirectly with the most of the gang stalking protocols. And that's why, like I've said it before on the channel, not to put anybody else down, but unless you own a house and property, guys, you are not getting the full range of gang stalking activities. Because I'm getting everything else that you get, on top of having to pay property taxes. And the extent of damage that they've done here is off the charts. Off the charts. Electronic equipment. Oh, okay, I just read that. I'm scrolling here. Okay, 1 second. Legal sabotage. Reporting things to the police should adhere to the extensive protocols and advice outlined in Information Handling of the Fight to Expose and Stop the Crime of Organized Stalking and Electronic Harassment by Eleanor White. In brief, one should avoid dealing with the police. Oh, and also, you can go onto YouTube, and there's a lawyer from probably about 10 years ago, and I think it's entitled Never Talk to the Police. Okay, so, in brief, one should avoid dealing with the police. The cabal utilizes police in plain clothes and undercover in their OSEH campaign against TIs. And there perhaps with some exceptions involved to varying degrees. The higher up the hierarchy they are, the more compromised and more corrupt they are. And I experienced some good cops in New Jersey. Some of the younger ones that were like, they weren't in the police force for a long time. You know, maybe they were fairly new. And they did report the crimes. But I remember one guy saying, he said, I can't give you any other information because it's above my, I forget what he said, it was above my something. And he was like really polite about it. It's not like he was concealing something. It was like he was just saying, well, I can't give you this information because of X, Y, and Z. Officers of the rank of sergeant and above are invariably Freemasons, who are the stupid animals in Yiddish, the Shabbos Goy, of their Jewish masters. Hence, they cannot be trusted. Oh, we know about that sergeant in New Jersey. The lieutenant, the sergeant, the chief of police. Oh, and the chief of police, he was sued, by the way, by one of his own police officers in New Jersey. Yes. Yes, and if anybody wants a copy of that lawsuit, email me at alternativehomestead@gmail.com. Literally, you really need to read the lawsuit filed by a police officer against the chief of police in Manalapan Township. You will be amazed at some of the gang stalking techniques utilized against him by his own police department. Yeah. Police work with private security professionals, locksmiths, alarm system companies, as well as private security guards and their managers to spy on and break and enter into TI's residences for harassment and sabotage purposes. And the legal system, being under the control of the cabal, it is called a Noahide Talmudic court which has supplanted the common law, employs lawyers and judges who will seek to railroad anyone that they can frame as having violated their laws or their bylaws through the system and give them the heaviest penalties there are available. Advice? Trust no member of the legal profession, as they're almost universally compromised. I can't say this other thing. Excuse me. They are the cabal alone with all other bureaucrats and organized private or public, and they all work together. So I'm going to end here because there's some information here that I really don't want to read, but I highly recommend you're downloading this PDF. And once again, I'll show it to you. I'll show you so that you can see what it looks like. Okay. You see what I'm talking about here? Okay. So anyway, I hope everybody's doing well. I hope this was informative, and thank you all for your feedback. I appreciate it. And thank you again, subscriber, for this very unique work of art. I appreciate it. I love it. I like works of art, as you know. And I will talk to you guys soon.